lions, tigers, and bears, and dogs, and cats, and birds, and rabbits. That's right, folks. We're talking about animals today. Some are tasty, some are just friends. What kind of impact have animals had on humanity, and what kind of impact has humanity had on animals? Welcome to another episode of the Bermuda Triangle Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Bermuda Triangle Podcast, where interesting topics get lost in good conversation. Guys, man, it's been a change.
Yeah, the video might look a little different, a little better, hopefully.
Yes.
We are in a new studio space. It's still in the works, but it's coming along.
We have upgraded quite a bit. In fact, you may notice that there is a face missing from this front camera spot.
Where did he go? Where did I go?
We killed him off. We killed him off.
So
where am I?
Travis
Oh wait!
has,
There I am.
Oh my gosh, there he is.
Hey!
He's alive.
Travis has moved over to a producer role to kind of help with this live stream setup that we've got now going. We are moved into a new studio. The images in the room you see is all going to start to change. Hopefully you get to watch as we grow and build our new studio.
Yeah, so here it goes.
Well, guys,
indeed.
Welcome to the rebuild part 7. I don't know how many you've done so far.
I'd say about
3.
I guess this is definitely our first major one. But I guess after a year of the show, it's, I guess, a little overdue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you might notice on your screen in the corner, we have a special guest again.
Yes, we have another guest. This is Audrey Quillen. We have her on the show for a very specific reason. She's very involved with pets and rescuing, and she ran her own rescue shelter and whatnot. So we're going to get in to having a conversation with her about animals and all those things.
Audrey, do you want to say anything about who you are or what you've done and just kind of give us a quick history of your involvement with animals?
Sure. So I'm Audrey Quillen. I founded and I'm the founder and director of Quillen Animal Rescue. It's a small nonprofit foster-based rescue. We deal with mainly dogs and cats. We are located in Austin, Texas, but we take dogs from all over. Our main mission, I guess, is to get as many animals out of Texas as possible. We do a lot of out-of-state adoptions, even international. We've sent a few animals to Canada, and yeah, that's kind of what we do.
So I noticed that you said get animals out of Texas. Is this specifically because there's like some major overpopulation issues in Texas, or what sort of drives that?
Basically, yes. For when I first started out, I had known about out-of-state adoptions and that there were these transport companies taking dogs and cats all over the country, but it just seemed logistically really difficult to get into. And I wasn't exactly sure how to do it. So, my rescue was just me. So I was just a little bit overwhelmed at the prospect of that. So we've mainly focused on local adoptions. And what I found was we would take in these dogs and there would be no one willing to adopt. And it was just, in San Antonio, dogs outnumber people.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
Yeah, so in order to get every dog a home locally, it's just impossible. So I've just noticed that there are more people looking to adopt and rescue specifically, and also that the adoptions tend to be a little bit what I would call higher quality. That's not to say that there aren't amazing pet owners in Texas. I live in Texas and I consider myself a great pet owner. I know that Adam owns a rescue dog and loves her to death. So
I do as well.
there are lots of Texans that are really amazing pet owners, but up north, what you find in states like in the Midwest, for example, and we've adopted dogs to Wisconsin and Washington or Oregon, there's the culture surrounding pet ownership is a little bit different. People will tend to take their animals into their home. I'm so sorry.
Speaking of pets.
People tend to take their animals into their home and treat them a little bit more like family, whereas in Texas, for some reason, I don't really know what it is, but a lot of people keep their dogs outdoors only, or they chain them up, or they think it's another form of security for their home or something. And there's just kind of a disconnect between family member and pet. And when I'm doing an adoption, I want to make sure that the animal is going to be given the absolute best life, like to make up for whatever life it lived before. So I've just noticed that I rarely have to deny an application from an applicant in Vancouver, Canada, for example, where
That's
in
because
Texas,
everybody in Canada is just overly nice.
Exactly.
They apologize.
Yeah.
But in Texas, I'm probably rejecting 1 in 3 for whatever.
Wow.
Do you feel like you're rejecting people more in like an urban environment versus rural?
No, I actually feel like I reject more rural applicants than urban applicants. Like I said, just people in rural areas, especially for dogs, like large dogs. Like I own a Doberman Pinscher, so those dogs tend to fall into my lap a lot just because I know a lot about the breed. I'm really passionate about the breed. But they are considered a protection dog. People want to have a Doberman chained up outside in the front yard to discourage robberies or whatever. And so when I have a Doberman up for adoption, I'll get a lot of people that will apply that want to have the dog outside all the time, and that's an automatic rejection for me. And it's from a lot of people in like rural areas that will do that mainly.
Yeah, one thing that I've found, so my dog that I rescued, she is a lab pit mix. She also has a brother. They were sort of found together roaming around or whatever. But her brother is more, I guess, on the pittier side, like has a lot of the pit bull characteristics.
Yeah.
And the girl that I rescued her from, the foster parent, like I'm still friends with her. Like I keep in contact with her all the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is.
And she was kind of telling me about how, like, she'd get a lot of interest in my dog's brother because of his characteristics. So she'd have a lot of guys that like really want like a big stout pit bull type dog, and she'd have to like turn away a whole bunch of people. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. A little follow-up question though, like one thing that I struggle with living, I live in the urban area, I guess, if you will, is the stigmas of, you sign a lease with an apartment, it's, no aggressive breeds, whatever the hell that means.
Yeah.
But like, do you find that that's sort of something that you have to deal with, or what do you think? What do you think drives some of that, and how can we as a society fix some of that?
The number one thing that drives that is insurance policies. Like, for example, I rent the house that I live in right now. I live in Austin. This was, when I moved here, I knew that I have 3 dogs. I have one Doberman mix, and then a Dachshund.
Oh, wow.
So
All right.
the Dachshund's obviously not a big deal, but to have 2 large, 80-pound Dobermans, a Doberman or a Doberman mix or whatever, it's just so difficult to find somewhere to live. And finally, it came down to the wire where it was like, okay, my lease is up in 10 days and I have nowhere to live. I applied to probably a dozen places, and it was just
I personally got around it by, according to her vet record, she's just a straight lab.
Right. Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
It's crazy that like people have to go to those lengths to like doctoring veterinarian documents to like lie about what their dog is. Like my dog wouldn't hurt a single human being, but for some reason she's on the aggressive breed list.
I gotta ask you, does the Dachshund run the house?
He does. So he's
of course.
We got him from a rescue located halfway between San Antonio and Austin, and they rescued him from a person who was hoarding dachshunds. They had like 100 in this backyard, and he only has one eye, and has 20% vision in the other. So he just kind of like runs. crashes into things and everyone just kind of lets him do whatever.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, my family's always been a dachshund family, so when I hear that, I'm like, oh yeah, the dachshund's gonna definitely be the one.
That one's running the ship. Yeah.
Speaking of, how you got your dachshund, what's your opinion on backyard breeders and like these puppy mills sometimes that are found? And just like, do you believe that people should have a drop dead permit to be able to breed dogs?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I've rescued so many dogs from backyard breeders. We actually had a situation a couple of years ago where a foster of mine, like a dear friend, there was this dog on this app called Nextdoor, which is kind of like a Craigslist app. And she was just like, Audrey, I don't know what to do. Like, I saw this dog and it was like, I had to go get it. So what do we do now? So of course, we helped her. We rehomed her. She lives in Washington now. She has a great life. But we went back and found the breeder and went over there and we're like, hey, are there any more puppies? And we actually got the breeder to surrender the one puppy to us. And just the conditions were horrible. And this is like in an upper class suburban neighborhood. This isn't like, yeah.
Well,
shocking.
It's not shocking to me, like the Mike Vick thing and all that was happening in
but that was for
extremely wealthy areas.
Different purpose.
It's I think something of like same thing with like the drug culture though. It always, you see like the biggest guys in the industry doing it are in the wealthiest areas, but it's always the shadiest thing you can think happening in these areas. But we were mentioning the breeds. Do you think this is a bigger problem when we were talking about like the violent breeds or aggressive breeds? Do you think this is a bigger problem when it comes to adoption or getting these dogs to the families that they need? Does that create a bigger problem having those legislation or the
perception?
The perception.
Well, the problem is that it's not legislative. Like aggressive breeds is such a general term.
It's like assault weapons.
That it's like
exactly.
It doesn't have any like legal definition. So like one complex may say, oh no, your golden retriever is an aggressive breed, but the other place is going to be like, no, German Shepherds are an aggressive breed. It's like, what is that?
The reason I ask is if I look at a shelter today and I go on a shelter's website, it's like 90% pit bull and everything else seems to disappear in a day, right? And it breaks my heart because I've lived with pit bulls. I know you have your pit mix, and every pit I've ever met when raised and the environments that I know have been some of the sweetest dogs I've ever known.
Yeah.
In fact, my big boxer is sometimes more would pin these pit bulls and could like take these little pit bulls down.
You mean your mini horse?
Yeah, my mini horse. I have a 90-pound boxer. He's massive. But like these pits are no more dangerous than my boxer.
Just to add to that, I have actually had the opposite experience, but I really think. And I'm not trying to denigrate the breed and whatnot, because I've also met the same dogs he's talking about, and they're great dogs. But this, I had a neighbor, and it was really with these dogs, like the so-called aggressive breeds and whatnot, it really comes to the way they were raised. And when they're raised in poor conditions, they're chained out into a yard, the backyard and stuff.
Yeah.
They're just going to be violent. They're bored. They're treated poorly.
Well, they have all this pent-up energy,
exactly.
And et cetera.
And it's just sad. It's terrible.
Oh, for sure. And I wouldn't say the funny thing is, but the interesting correlation between that is, that's exactly how humans are as well. If you're brought up in sort of a place that's not very well suited, you're not taken care of, your needs aren't met, you're just sort of pushed off to the side, that's when you start having, exhibiting some of those aggressive behaviors, and, dogs are no different.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What do you think we can do about that perception, Audrey? Maybe
to be honest, it's just going to be every individual having their own individual experiences. Unfortunately, there is a culture surrounding dog ownership, and especially surrounding like the pit bull, for example. There are a lot of people that get pit bulls and just don't care about them or throw them out into the yard and think that's going to be okay. And it's not. And until that part ends, because it only takes one. right? It only takes one time. Like, there was a situation in San Antonio, actually, like a few weeks ago, where a dog that had been outside chained up killed a 4-year-old child.
Damn.
And it's, yeah, exactly. And you only need how many, like, it doesn't matter how many hundreds of great pitties there are that you have positive experiences with. Whenever you see one, you're always going to think in the back of your mind, oh, I saw that news story one time with that, where that 4-year-old boy was just mauled to death. And you're always going to be a little apprehensive and a little
Do you think that some of these, like, I guess once to the point of a dog sort of getting super aggressive and stuff like that, because I know pretty much, I think the law is pretty standard as far as, like, if the dog, like, kills a human being or injures them to whatever degree enough, like, they're going to put it down. Like, do you think that's sort of an effective measure, or do you think that, you know, there's rehabilitation that you can do with a dog, or, you know, do you think it's right that we just sort of say, okay, this dog killed a human being, like, we just got to get rid of it?
If you kill someone, yeah, you're gone. Sorry, that's it.
Yeah.
There was one dog in particular. Like, I tell everyone, I'm not a trainer. I have 0 dog training experience. My experience is in, like, taking them in, feeding you, getting you reconstituted. You know, if you're starving, I can make you healthy again and everything, and then adopting you out to a family that I think is going to best fit your personality. My biggest challenge in rescue was we had a pit bull mix named Lola, who was just a wonderful dog. She was found actually by a friend of mine who took her in, and then just one day something snapped. She got into it. He had a chow mix, and they almost fought to the death. Lola took the brunt of it. Lola just stitches all up and down her body. She was in a really, really rough shape. And after that, she couldn't be around my friend. His name was Matt. She couldn't be around Matt's chow anymore. That was over. You know, they were never going to get along again. And every time they saw each other, they would get into these horrible fights, where both of them would end up injured, and it was miserable for everyone involved. You know, this constant anxiety of having to deal with these 2 dogs that hated each other. And one time in breaking up a dog fight, Matt's wife was actually bitten, and she had to get stitches.
Oh, man.
And yeah, but in that situation where you can pinpoint the exact cause of the problem, there's a way to mitigate the problem, that's a situation where the dog can probably be easily rehabilitated. For example, I took Lola to a professional trainer, a friend of mine who runs a wonderful rescue called Mission Miracle Canine in San Antonio. Matt and Sarah, who run the rescue, looked at Lola. She did a little play group thing, and they were able to say, look, Lola has what is essentially PTSD. She'll never be able to be around other dogs again. I mean, she loves people. She would never hurt anyone. The only reason why Chelsea got bitten was because she was just in the middle of this high intensity thing, and Lola didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
But she loves people so much. She just needed a family that was willing to give her a single dog experience. You know, this is the only dog we're gonna own. We're gonna not. Like, she's not the kind of dog that'll ever be able to go to the dog park, for example, you know? And telling an owner that, like, right off the bat, hey, this is a dog that you're not going to be able to do certain things with, is a big turnoff, because no one wants to adopt a dog that's going to be a problem. So it took Lola a really long time to get adopted. Ended up finding her the most wonderful family in Washington, and she lives there now and is having her single dog experience, and you know, hopefully we'll be able to heal from that. But the only time I can see any sort of like rehabilitation, especially when it's human dog violence, is when you can pinpoint the exact trigger of the problem and work with a professional. Don't ever do it on your own. Don't ever do it on your own. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth having something happen. And a dog can very easily overpower you. You know, we don't think about that a lot because we live with them, but if your dog wants to kill you, there's a good chance they probably could pretty easily,
Now I'm super suspicious of my own dog.
Yeah, let's scare him.
Right.
I'm not trying to scare anyone, but I mean, that's my biggest advice. If your dog has a problem, take it to a professional. Spend the money. Your dog, if you think that your dog is worth it, if you appreciate the relationship that you have and you want to save it, then yeah, work with a professional and try everything that you can.
Yeah, and you'll likely see better and faster results that way too.
Exactly. And unfortunately, there are situations where even with a professional, that call has to be made, where it's just something has happened. It's not the dog's fault and it's not your fault. It's just an unfortunate reality. But yeah, not every dog is suitable for rehabilitation, and that's just unfortunate. But that is reality. And making that call is the hardest thing in rescue.
I just call Caesar Milan.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Your dog has PTSD. Call Caesar, dog whisperer.
The dog whisperer.
You're good to go.
So Audrey, you mentioned earlier some of your criteria, I guess, or one thing that you used to filter out potential, I guess, adopting parents of a new dog or cat. What would you say to people that may be thinking of adopting a dog, like how to best prepare for like expectations, and best prepare for sort of their home for a new dog or animal rather?
The number one thing that I would do is I would have the first thing that I would do is I would have at least $500 set away in an emergency fund somewhere for specific, your dog jumps off the couch, it breaks his leg, you're covered, Those kinds of medical emergencies are just happen all the time, and you never think about it until it's too late. And a lot of dogs end up having to be put down because people just don't have, an extra $700 to spend on, an emergency surgery to get a blockage removed or something from the intestine. So that's the first thing that I would do is have.
I guess you could also get like pet insurance too, right?
Pet insurance is really good, definitely. Unfortunately, it just doesn't cover a whole lot. I think when a dog is young, especially, I just wouldn't waste my money on it. I would just keep $500 to $700 set away for a rainy day. And that will probably end up being less money overall. When the dog gets older, like 7 and up, that's when I would start bringing pet insurance into the equation, because then your dog is going to be frequenting the vet a lot more often, and it'll probably end up being worth the cost. But that's the first step. And then the next step I would say would be definitely do some research on whatever kind of breed of dog you want. Even if you say you don't want a specific breed, you want a mixed breed. Do you want a medium energy, medium-sized dog? Do you want a high-energy small dog? Do you want a high-energy large dog? Because all of those are going to impact, kind of your life over the next 10 to 12 years. How often are you willing to go on a walk? Are your dogs, do you have a large enough yard to accommodate a large enough dog? Is your yard secure?
That's a big one.
Yeah.
And the other thing is I would give up the idea of having a perfectly clean home forever.
Yeah, I had to get rid of that too. Dog hair is my nemesis.
Exactly.
The Roomba is my best friend.
Exactly. If you're the kind of person that's going to freak out about dog hair on the couch, just don't get a dog. It's just not worth it to the dog that can't help it.
Yeah.
One of my 85-pound Doberman mix, if he hears a loud noise, he pees. It's
Oh, no.
I bet you that's made for some awkward situations.
Exactly. I mean, the worst thing that ever happened was we bought a brand new mattress, and it was thunderstorming outside or something, and it's just a little like tinkle, it's just like, oh, mattress is ruined, and we just bought it like a day ago. So I would just, you need to be able to let those kinds of things roll off your shoulders and in order to live a happy life. I mean, that's how I would best prepare my home. I would just kind of give up.
Give up.
Which
Give
is
up on
good.
some aspects of it because you ain't gonna have any success with it. Well, Audrey, as we wrap up here with this portion of the show, is there any specific organizations? Because I know your organization's sort of in a hiatus right now, and I hope that you're able to sort of get it up on its feet. But is there anywhere that you would direct people? I guess within Texas or just nationally or anywhere, as like good organizations that are good for adopting pets and whatnot.
Definitely adopt. I mean, your first step should always be your local shelter. I understand that shelters, like you mentioned, sometimes they only have pit bulls available, and that's if you're not looking for a pity, it can be really hard to find other breeds. If you're looking for a breed specific dog, Google, for example, Golden Retriever Rescue Texas or Golden Retriever Rescue Massachusetts or wherever you live. There's always an option to adopt. Going to a breeder right now where with the overpopulation situation the way that it is, I just think it's completely unethical. And that's from someone who really loves, I love my purebred dogs. I have a purebred Doberman, I have a purebred Dachshund, but it's just not ethical right now. There's just too many. As far as specific organizations, if you're looking for a cat in San Antonio, there's a wonderful woman. She's called Wayward Whiskers Cat Rescue. She's just absolutely amazing, and she's one of the only people that are only doing cats, which there's a huge need for cats. If you're looking for a dog, I would try God's Dogs Rescue. Julianne Marbox and Debbie Davis. They're just absolutely wonderful people. They also transport all over the country. And they've just gotten thousands and thousands of animals, like these wonderful homes. So I would definitely check out either of those organizations. Would be a good place to start if your local shelter doesn't have anything that you're really looking for.
Yeah, and we'll definitely include both of those links to those websites for those organizations in the bio for the YouTube video. All right, well, Audrey, we really, really appreciate you joining us for the show. You've definitely provided some really insightful information and a perspective that's sort of on the ground level of sort of this rescue sort of thing that's going on. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you,
Audrey.
Audrey.
Bye.
All right.
That was actually
insightful.
Very insightful. Yeah.
Yeah.
To have somebody sort of on the ground level,
Pause to the ground.
doing it. Yeah, pause to the ground. There you go. Like doing some of these things and experiencing
always count on you,
rescue
Carl.
animals from that perspective. I mean, super valuable information for sure.
Well, man,
There's
there's
a lot
a,
to take in.
there's-
yeah.
Take a break. Take a breather.
There's
Take a
there's
breather.
one thing that kind of sparked my mind when she was talking. I guess one thing I feel like that gives people apprehension to adoption is they think first off that the dog is more human than it really is. Like they try to put these human characteristics and these human wants and needs on an animal, and they think that like they can yell at the animal and the animal understands them, but that's just not the case.
Yeah, despite your biggest efforts, dogs don't understand English.
Yeah, no. I have
They
to like
understand sounds.
explain this to people who especially with like little dogs are like. I know some people who own dogs and they carry them around with them in like a purse, but they treat these dogs like
Like that's an accessory.
Yeah, like
that's exactly what it is.
and they don't. There's an advantage of training your dog as though they're a dog. And like having boundaries and understanding who's the leader and who is in charge, and
The alpha.
like there is ways to do this without being violent as well. But like you really get a respect, and like a dog thinks like a pack, and a dog thinks like a
They're pack
wild
animals.
animal.
Yeah.
Like that's how they think. And when you raise a dog like that, the dog's relationship with you is I think a lot better.
Well,
I think your relationship and the respect and the command you have with the dog can be beneficial and far more than carrying your dog in a purse.
Yeah, well, just what you were saying, it's a relationship that's not founded in fear. It's a relationship of sort of mutual respect and just understanding that's my pack leader. I'm just going to follow the pack leader.
Mm-hmm.
Some interesting statistics that I was looking up that is actually quite shocking, and this is according to the ASPCA. Each year, approximately 1.5 million shelter animals are euthanized. And that's about 670,000 dogs and about 860,000 cats. So I was actually surprised that there was more cats euthanized.
That is kind of shocking because cats are usually, well, it's probably because they pick them up off the streets and cats breed very quickly.
They do breed very quickly, but cats are such easier animals to have. They're very low maintenance. They clean themselves.
They're wild. They're wild.
They're very and
they like humans occasionally.
They pretend it's a conspiracy. They pretend to like humans.
No. It's not a conspiracy. That's just how they.
I know.
I've had cats in my life my entire life.
Yeah,
and that's how they are. You have outdoor cats and you have indoor cats. And the outdoor cats, they can be indoors sometimes, but the outdoor cats, you feed them in the morning and they're gone.
Yeah, that's kind of always interested me too. The whole concept of outdoor cats, like, do they really come back all the time?
Yes. Oh yeah. And what's the craziest thing is like when I had a cat. Her name was Tabby Cat, obviously.
Hey.
And she lived to about 12 years old. And my dad every morning go out, feed her in the garage, whistle, make a sound, and she'd come running underneath the garage door. And then one day she didn't come back.
Oh, man.
So what cats do, and when they know they're about
go off to die,
they just go off and die. So their own, I guess.
Yeah.
The thought process is that so the owner doesn't see them, but
Yeah.
I think it's just how they naturally biologically have been bred into that idea.
Yeah.
Because
I think
the pack.
Yeah, I think some other cat animals do that as well.
Mm-hmm. They don't want to be the weak link.
Yeah, don't quote me on this, but I think lions do that, where they'll just kind of go off away from the herd and just kind of just die over there.
Sounds like
he served
something
no
out of
purpose.
Lion King or something.
No.
Oh God, not like the Olympics.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. Don't lie.
But yeah, actually, a large majority of people in the United States actually do own pets. So 44% rather of all households in the U.S. have a dog, and 35% have a cat. That's pretty high.
No, I know correlation does not equal causation
Sure.
at all. But do you think so in America right now the birth rate is declining? Do you think this might play a little correlation with the pets? So the idea is that people are stopping having kids.
Yeah.
And they replace them with a pet.
Yeah, I was reading.
I can see that.
Yeah, I was reading an article the other day that it was titled, and I didn't actually read the article, so I fell for whatever trick they were pulling. But it said that millennials are buying houses not for their kids but for their dogs.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think it's kind of funny, but it's kind of true.
It does make
morbid.
sense.
It's
Yeah.
morbid.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's morbid. I think it's just a shift in priorities. Like people are just wanting kids later in life now. It's not necessarily not wanting kids at all, just later in life.
They don't want their kids in the most fertile years of their biological lives.
This is a whole nother conversation,
absolutely.
but
Yeah.
I think this gives me a segue into another section of animals and their emotional support that they give for humans.
Oh my God. It's beyond like physical. It's almost spiritual in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's spiritual.
Well, I was actually reading another article. Let me see. I have that one pulled up. Single children families. They have there's a lot of information about those single parent or single child families. That single child having issues with empathy or self-esteem or working with others, and a few other traits that you don't get to have a sibling to interact with when you're at home and getting those your developmental years, kind of how you deal with someone having another emotion and being able to deal with that. And there's a huge impact of owning an animal with that child. Does a great deal to impact their ability to be empathetic and to work with others and to play activities together and do things with the dog. But I kind of went down a rabbit hole on that one where it was like single child. There was a ton of information on it. But really as a whole, there's, I think since the 50s, let me pull this article up here.
Mean, anybody that owns a dog, all you got to do is go up and pet your dog, and you can feel better, right? Like I feel the stress just like being drained out of me when I'm, near Obi or any of my dogs.
I have the article.
And besides just feelings too, and kids and as well as adults, young adults too, it teaches you a certain sort of sense of responsibility. Like you're caring for something that's alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's definitely important. As soon as I get off work, the first thing that goes on my mind is, I got to go home and take care of my dog.
Yeah,
and then I can do whatever else in life I want to do.
Yeah. So sometimes people will invite me to do things after work or anything. Like, no, I can't be out super late. Like my dog's been in her kennel all day. Like, it's not that I don't want to, hang out with people, but my dog has been kind of locked up, and I want to get her out, play with her a little bit, get some energy out, feed her, let her go relieve herself.
And that's for me. That's exactly why I haven't gotten a dog. I would love to have a dog, but I understand that 8 hours a day gone and just crammed into an apartment, especially with apartment living, is just not. I don't think it's feasible to have a dog.
Well,
happy.
Well, my dog's really happy. I live in an apartment, and she's kennel trained, and she doesn't mind being in the kennel. Like, I mean, of course, after longer periods of the day, she's ready to get out, and sure, but like she goes in there and just chills on her own sometimes. Just like that's sort of like dogs have sort of this like it's her den, it's her space kind of, and. If she gets in trouble or something like that, and she knows that she's in trouble, like she's just gonna go chill in there because she knows that she's gonna be in timeout. But like, yeah, I mean, I don't. Is it ideal? Like, no, I would love that. I say this all the time with my girlfriend too. I would love to have a backyard to where she can just go ape shit, but
in and out and whatever.
But I just have to supplement that in other ways. By playing with her. Like, I have this toy it's like a little metal pipe kind of thing. And it's got a bungee cord with a little something on the end of it, like a fuzzy felt thing.
A fishing rod?
It kind of, but kind of big. And she just goes crazy for that thing. And I'll just sit there and I'll just off the bed, on the bed, off the bed, on the bed, off the bed, on the bed. And by the end, she's just dying. Like, she's just like ran a marathon. It's really funny, but yeah.
I pulled up that article, and the first person to start studying dogs interacting with humans, or at least in our records, is Boris Levinson. It was in the early 50s. He discovered it by accident. He was working with autistic children, and he had a dog named Jingles, which I thought was just cute. And so
interesting.
He had this autistic kid that was interacted with no other human, but would interact with his dog. And when he noticed that, he thought it was kind of strange and started studying it more and more and more. And then we have, where is his name? Sigmund Freud.
Yep.
I know that name.
Yep.
Renowned psychoanalyst. Yep.
So he has done the most work when it came to dogs and human interacting together. And he kind of picked up some of the basics of the first gentleman I mentioned, Levinson. And kind of built from there. And he's done a bunch to study how it affects people with different disorders from PTSD, anxiety, agoraphobia,
words,
aerophobia, depression, general anxiety, stress-induced situations, social shyness, increased in, and they saw immediate things impacted with increased social interactions, bigger self-esteems, patients feeling more safe and comfortable, more motivated, decrease in symptoms of the diagnosed illness, almost within a few weeks of playing with these animals.
Why do you think that is?
I think in some ways it's a distraction. Dogs a lot of time are, just naturally happy creatures. They like human contact. At least we bred them to be that way. And they're very responsive to human emotion as well. Like when you're sad or depressed, like they know, like they have a feel, like they feel more than they, I guess respond to. Like I said, they don't understand English, right? But they pick up on your emotions. They're in tune with just inner, like, I don't want to say energies because it makes me sound like a hippie, but they're just in tune. They're just more aware of emotions. And so they're able to kind of pick up on those things. And I think that's kind of.
Would you say it's because they don't, like, they lack an ego almost? They lack that I that we, as Sigmund Freud has,
they understand their role as not the pack leader. Like, they're looking to you for guidance, decision making, companionship and stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like there's one trait dogs have that we as humans experience basically when we are young, but never again. Like, we lose this one trait when we get to a certain age, and that's innocence.
We become educated.
Well, I
Or
feel,
corrupted.
I feel like dogs and younger children like have a true sense of innocence that you don't see once you lose it, it's gone. It's never coming back.
Oh no, there are people.
It's
that
very
preserve that.
difficult,
It's
but it's very
difficult.
difficult for it to come back for sure. Yeah.
I think dogs, though, don't have words, right? And so they're very an expressive animal. They pick up on little cues, like how you hold yourself, how you carry your neck, your shoulders,
how you
your
said
eye,
something.
Yeah, how you inflict your voice. Because I think that's the same way, though, a bark is used, right? And, my Obi, stubborn as all hell, if I just say, like, go to your kennel, but if I, like, go to your kennel, he's like, all right, okay, yeah,
I'm going
go.
there, and I feel like I'm in trouble. Don't know why, but
he knows. And I could barely whisper words to get him excited. And like right now, if I said the
Don't say it.
WAOK word, like
gone.
he's
I think
up
he starts
and
to
like
recognize
crazy.
The spelling.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, like it's
He could
it's
spell.
impressive. But
They're
that
adapting.
I wanted to go kind of rewind back.
Actually, I wanted to say something on this general point that we've been talking about. And that is service animals, and with like veterans and PTSD. I mean, that's a huge thing.
Absolutely.
As much positive things I have to say about that, and the reasons why that work fit right into the things that we've already said. One of the issues that I'm seeing, and I'm seeing this more and more and more, is fake service animals.
Yep. Buy the vest.
You buy the vest, and everyone's afraid to ask you, like, whether it be a restaurant owner. No, well, you can actually tell that you can actually ask them for their documentation,
For their IDs, yeah.
But the problem with that is that there's a lot of fake places where you just pay them a $50 fee and they send you documentation. But really, what your documentation is I believe it's supposed to be a formal letter from your doctor. It doesn't have to tell you what you have and why you need it. It's just the doctor says that you need a service animal, and then this one's trained to be a service animal, and they go. But like, I see this all the time, and it kind of makes me distrustful of a lot of people. I mean, I'm very aware that there are sort of invisible wounds. Like, someone's got PTSD, you're not going to look at them and be like, that guy's got PTSD. But there's just people that I think are getting too, I guess, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but they're just trying to get the service animal because for whatever reason they want to take their dog to fucking HEB, or whatever it may be, and then they end up they're ruining it for the people that actually have and need service animals.
All it takes is one.
I could. It doesn't bother me too much unless they're like
it bothers
destruction.
Well, that's the thing. That's what's ruining it is that these actually aren't trained service animals, and you take them out to, let's say, HEB, and the dog's taking a shit in the grocery store, or they're running around or attacking or clawing at stuff, whatever it may be. They're just not behaving as an actual service animal, but because you paid that online website $50 and they mailed you some fake paperwork, you're now taking your dog everywhere. And to me, it's a huge disservice to people that actually need them, because now that company or that whatever it is now going to say service animals are a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen that yet myself, so I don't have that strong of an opinion on it. But I get your point. I feel that way with anything. It's like people who irresponsibly use guns, out pointing guns at people even though they're not loaded. Like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're gonna ruin this for all of us.
Right.
But
that's why we can't have nice things.
Yeah. I mean, that rule applies everywhere in life, right?
Absolutely.
But I wanted to roll back to like the reason I got a dog. There was so I was raised with dogs my whole life. My parents own Weimaraners and have had them their whole life, and actually just had a new litter of Weimies, and they're show dogs and crazy breeds. But I grew up with them my entire life, and then I moved out when I was 18, 19, and Travis and I actually lived together We were living together for a few years.
You guys were married, right?
Yeah, we were married, common law.
Pretty-
Um,
I'm not gonna lie though, like we were living together like 5 years.
5 or
I
6
think
years.
I think we could
No,
have
it hasn't-
gotten a
no, it's gotta-
domestic.
It's
Gotta
got to
Yeah.
be 10.
It's got to be 10
It's gotta be 10. Oh,
Yep.
okay, never mind.
Oh, okay.
for the state of Texas.
Rats.
Okay.
Darn it! You could have gotten half his shit.
Well, we were living together for maybe a year or so at that time before we had gotten a dog, and I was like, man, something's just not been right about my life, and I just feel kind of like empty still. I feel kind of alone. I don't really know what it is that's missing. And then one day it just like hit me, dude. I've been living without a dog.
Mm.
I've never gone without a dog that long. And then one day I was like, hey, Travis, I'm going to go buy a dog. And he was like,
I was very apprehensive at first.
yeah. And then I just said, screw it. Showed up with Obi. Right? So
Here he is, all
I-
3,500 pounds of him.
At the time, he was only like 30 pounds. He was like, or maybe less. He was 3 months
Oh.
old.
There's Obi in the pictures.
Yes.
Oh.
I
Obi-Wan.
I don't know if I'm actually pointing in
Yeah,
the right
yeah,
direction at
yeah,
all, but
you
now
got
I am.
So that was Obi, probably a year old in that photo. But
how big he
I
is.
rescued Obi from a shelter, Bark Houston. He was there for a few weeks, and I went one day, checked out a bunch of dogs, said, okay, I'm not going to buy a dog today. I'm going to look, and I'm going to come back tomorrow, and if any of these dogs are still here, I'm buying one of them. And I came back, and he was still there. They had an influx of dogs where they had like 3 or 4 of them per kennel.
Oh wow.
And it was so many of them. They put an ad in the Houston Chronicle that said $20 a dog.
Yeah,
Shots,
they've done it. It's
vaccination,
gotten to the point where
everything.
they're like, you don't pay anything.
just come take
pick
him.
it up.
Just kept
Yeah.
dogs. Yeah.
And so, I got him for $20. Best $20 I've ever spent. You aren't cheap, Obi. I love you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just say for myself, in that whole process, like you were saying before, I was very apprehensive to getting Obi, but as soon as you took him home and like the amount of just sheer love he pours out of him, you can't help but just fall in love. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big goofus.
Yeah.
He's uncoordinated. He thinks he's like 5 pounds. He wants to sit everywhere. I mean, just in the year and some change that I've known Obi, I mean, he's a great dog. He's a great dog.
It's definitely the boxer breed, though,
I-
for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
I feel like that is absolutely true.
And he's very vocal.
So-
He wants to talk to you.
I guess how I ended up with my personal story with my dog. Growing up, my sister and I have always just wanted a dog. And it's really like growing up, we had to we asked my parents, my mom and my stepdad, for a dog, and my stepdad was super against dogs. So finally one day we convinced him to get a dog, but we had to compromise greatly because one, my mom just showed up with it, so we didn't pick it out or anything like that. But it had my stepdad did not want a dog that shedded, just wanted a very easy maintenance dog. So my mom brought home a toy poodle that was probably about this big when we got him.
Oh my goodness.
And we had that thing for quite some time. We named him Scooter. But funny thing with that though is my stepdad ended up becoming more attached than any of us to that
Yeah,
dog.
it's usually how it goes.
So we always give him a lot of shit for it. So anyway, I've always just kind of had an attraction to dogs. I've really always liked them. Then when I was in the military, of course I couldn't own one. And my sister had gotten a dog, actually 2 dogs. And so every time I'd go over there and, when I was visiting, play with her dogs, and I just really, really wanted a dog. And I always just told myself, when I got out of the military, I'm finally going to get my dog, a dog from me that I'm just going to love and take care of. And I think it took me about 6 months after, I got an apartment, kind of got settled back into Houston, that I rescued Ellie, who's on the screen here. She is an amazing pup. She is very hyperactive, which challenges me at times. But
Yeah.
sometimes it gets me out of the house, which is good. But yeah, I rescued her, and it's been a really great experience.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think rescuing after I've rescued him, and I've never really, my parents never rescued dogs growing up. They've just kind of bred them.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I could do it another way. It just feels like the right way to get a dog, and especially after that conversation with Audrey,
Yeah.
it's pretty clear to me.
Yeah, I mean, I really learned a lot about the adoption thing when my sister did it twice. I have, if I ever, I mean, I'm sure I'll get another dog sometime in my lifetime, but I have no plans to ever get a dog any other way than adopting it.
Yeah.
Again, the ethical question that Audrey was bringing up, I just don't feel ethical about going to a breeder. And I'm not saying breeders are necessarily all bad people, but some of them are doing some fucked up shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I would never do it any other way.
Well, I think we've kind of beat that horse.
Yeah, I think we've talked about animals from a pet ownership perspective.
Yeah.
There are a couple other things that I would like to hit on. And this one is really talked about in more of an extreme way. Alert PETA. But we definitely have an issue with factory farming in the United States and some places in the rest of the world. Animals just kept in really poor conditions. We've all seen, I'm sure, some of the documentaries. But yeah, what do you guys think about factory farming?
I was going to just so I was telling them before this podcast. This is really dark and depressing. I'm sorry I have to bring this up, but I think it's really important. There's a news article on I think it was like MSNBC or something. They were talking about the sheep shipments between Australia and the Middle East and the living conditions for these sheep. I mean, this is mass farming, congregating all these like thousands upon thousands of sheep into one little cargo hold. And these sheep, what happens is, I won't go into gross details because it's just absolutely
horrendous,
macabre in all sense of the word. They pretty much overheat from living in their own fecal matter.
Oh, what?
And they die. They overheat from asphyxiation because the ammonia that rises up, it cancels out all the oxygen inside the cargo hold.
Wow.
And so they have thousands upon thousands of sheep. And it's just, I was like, I could feel something die in myself. And it's like, why have we gotten to this point? How have we gotten to this point? Is it because of mass production capitalism? Is it because we're trying to sustain overpopulation in the world? Or is it because the culture has just accepted that and we just turn a blind eye to it?
Well, I think one things that have greatly affected that is we have removed, at least in the United States and definitely in some other places, we have removed ourselves from the animal.
Absolutely.
Like when someone thinks of, a cow or eating a burger, like they just see the burger, like, oh, go to the restaurant, give me that fucking T-bone steak, put it on my plate, that's delicious and I like that. But they don't make the connection of where that comes from, what went into making that, sort of raising that animal. So we have so removed ourselves from the actual animal that we just don't like. Just give me the lamb. I just don't care. Just give me the meat.
And this correlation just made popped into my head. Do you think it's because of specifically with Western civilization that we are very much a Christian background country, and the work ethic behind Christianity is, especially with Roman Catholicism, is the separation between animal and human being. There's a big distinction. One is that holds dominion of earth, and one does not. And do you think that whole mindset is still prevalent today?
Actually, I think that's really interesting that you bring that up.
I've never thought of that perspective.
I haven't either. But I don't think that's a bad perspective to try and debate. It is very different. Christianity is a very different religion when it comes to animal treatment. Not that they say anything really abusive about animals. They just don't really observe animals the same way as...
I wouldn't just say it's Christianity, too.
I wanted to add to
Judeo-Christian.
The Abrahamic religion.
The Abrahamic religion.
Yeah, Judeo-Christian.
Islam, Judaism, Christianity.
There's a very big gap between what is sacred. Now, don't get me wrong, because
not even sacred.
There used to be animal sacrifices, so but there is humans and there's animals.
Yeah, it's very much separated into a class.
One's a tool and one's not.
One was designed and created by God in His image, quote, and the other one was just here to serve the purpose of humans.
The hypocrisy is a little weird.
That's what I was gonna say. Is that in Genesis it does say that the animals were created to be given to humans.
Yeah.
To be used as tools.
I remember man being created, Adam was, after eating the apple, was his punishment was that he was going to have to work for his food.
I mean, one thing I was gonna say though on the separation between Western civilization and the animal itself, and what you see with more developing areas is that people literally have to harvest the resources from that animal to get a meal. They have no other choice.
But that's interesting because, like, when you look at the Inuit, for example, the Inuit have a reverence towards animals. Like, say, when they kill a whale or something, it's not because they can for sport. They use every little bit of the whale. They use for the blubber to the skins to the bones, even. Everything's a tool. Everything has a purpose. And to me, that is morally righteous, in my opinion.
Well, and that's some things that I've been kind of doing a little bit more research on because, you know, from the perspective of PETA, if you talk about, you know, anybody hunting animals, you know, bigger game, elk or buffalo or whatever, they're just like, no, those people are evil. They're just trying to hunt for sport, and they just, you know, they're just gonna waste everything. But like, I've actually listened to and really been starting to reading a lot of literature from these hunters and these big game folks. Like, they so care about the animals. It's an overpopulation of, you know, maybe, you know, because like they're talking about bringing wolves back to LA. Like, are you guys out of your mind? Like, they're just gonna eat people. Like, no,
they're gonna eat the deer. That's what
like,
they're trying to get rid of.
If you want to have LA, you need to not have the wolves there. Like, have them somewhere else and let them prosper elsewhere. But like this idea that, and there are actually wolves in LA. They're like in the, it's not Central Park, but it's
and stuff too.
there's a park in LA, downtown LA, where there's like wolves will come every now and then. It's like, what the fuck? But yeah, I mean, I've been reading them and kind of digesting some of this material, and to hear these hunters talk about, you know, why they might kill that elk, and why, you know, because if you have more elk, that attracts more bears. You have more bears, the bears don't give it about shit. They're looking for a meal. That's all they care about. So yeah, it's really interesting perspective that I've been learning a little bit more about recently, is from, you know, hunting from the hunter's perspective.
I think we skipped over the farming thing though.
Let's retract back to that.
I have very serious concerns with that, and it's very frustrating. But I also don't think there's, I don't think government needs to get involved to fix the issue. And legislation. I think this needs to be cultural, kind of like what you were saying. Is people have detached themselves from the animal, and when we talk about like cultural changes, we are able to make a bigger impact, right? Like, we went and ate at a restaurant that served only local sourced foods last night, and there's a bunch of them popping up all over the area, and they're all like cage free and all these things, and it's becoming more of a trend.
I concern myself with, are they doing it for the marketing, or are they actually doing it?
You know,
who's checking that?
Yes, but like, look, there's definitely a culture growing that is aware of these problems and is trying to make change. And I think we can. And we've mentioned there's alternative meats that are coming out, and a lot of science going behind that. But I think just shaming somebody for doing it is the best answer.
Well, I dance very close to that line, because then you can quickly get into the PETA thing, and the PETA thing is like, you know, you're a murderer, you should never eat animals. Like, to me, the problem with factory farming, to me, I don't immediately jump to like, oh, veganism is the answer, because it actually takes more land and more resources from the Earth's perspective to grow all these vegetables and stuff like that versus, let's say, raising a cow. But I think there is an answer. I don't necessarily have the answer, but one way that I'm currently interested as a possible answer is sort of like lab-grown meats,
like what I was saying,
or replicating proteins of meat into, you know, just whatever.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to hit on, you said that it needs to be more of a societal thing, something from our culture needs to change, but I think some of these ag-gag laws need to go. Like, if somebody's being prosecuted for, you know, trying to fly a drone over some of these like factory farms, and they are not allowed to post that video, and and they get immediately prosecuted, like, that's crazy.
Well, and a lot of the
I
problem
didn't even
is
know about that.
Well, a lot of the problems is these big
I don't
corporations.
think that law should exist.
Yeah,
I'm with you there.
A lot of the problems with this and the factory farming are these giant corporations like Tyson and stuff like that, who set very strict standards of, okay, you have to grow this type of chicken. Here's, you know, the conditions you're going to grow it in. We're only going to pay you if blah, blah, blah. And like, it's so strictly controlled by the corporation that it's just, you know, they're just destroying chickens.
Well, what they're doing is they're having their lawyers find the most minimal living conditions that they can give their product. and they're sticking to that to save as much money as possible.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, it's in the conditions you've seen from like whistleblowers that go into those factories and stuff is just atrocious. It's atrocious. But what's crazy, I would be a hypocrite to say that I don't eat that. Like I don't not eat that food.
Yeah, well, I mean, and understandably, in some cases, like, you know, if you're gonna talk about, like, I think Whole Foods is a great place. I think they're doing good things. I would love to see more things like Whole Foods.
It's just not affordable.
But I can't afford that.
Yeah.
And a lot of, you know, lower income folks, like,
They're
it's
stuck
much,
with the Tyson stuff.
They're stuck. Exactly. Perfectly well said. They're stuck with the Tyson stuff. And even though they know that it's shit food, it's not good for you. Like, okay, look, this is what's feeding my kids. This is what I got for now.
6 kids to feed, and you know that big bag of 36 wings for $12. Yeah, that's affordable.
But I know that the information it's out there. Like, I mean, like I said, we've all seen a documentary about factory farming, and I've seen some of the conditions, and they're disgusting. But it's very hard to break that cycle. It's very hard to get out of that unless you're willing to sort of pay the price.
Yes.
And even then, I'm not so confident that all these sort of, I guess organic, whatever you want to call it, is actually happening anyway. Like the organic industry is a bunch of bullshit anyway. But like, I don't know. Unless I went to the farm myself,
There's a skit about that
picked
on
out
Portlandia.
Yeah, unless I don't know. It's just I think there should just I don't know what the answer is, but the information, the culture, so society has the information, but nothing's changing. So
I need to know the name of the pet.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like
that I'm eating.
I guess that's where I'm maybe saying, and I don't want to necessarily get into the conversation of government versus no government, but like I think the government can do some things to sort of force the change in some ways. Yes, I know you're going to go there, but I mean, it's not happening even with the information out there. And these corporations like Tyson and some of the other ones, they're just so powerful, and they run the chicken industry.
I mean, my argument would be is that they have legislative control and be in laws that shouldn't exist and things like Travis mentioned. And if we go in the direction that I'm thinking, these laws don't exist and don't give them the authority and the power to be able to take advantage of certain situations.
It's the laws that we have been conformed to sort of go with their business practices.
Yeah, it
so
aids them.
It's not necessarily that you need to just get rid of the laws, that you just need to change the law.
Maybe.
Because you can't just go around just getting rid of all the laws, because then it's like, cool, I'm just still going to do whatever I want.
Maybe.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's just going to be a culture shift in like most things. Typically, it's the upper middle class or upper classes that start the trends of change. So, like for example, this has nothing to do with animals whatsoever, but like with microwaves, those were upper middle class commodities at one point.
Shit, they were upper class.
Yes,
strictly.
no, that's what I'm saying. And then it slowly trickled down.
Oh, for sure.
Lower. So it's whether, like I said, correlation, causation.
You think that could happen with organic food?
Possibly. I mean, that's what we're seeing now.
Well,
so when you look at the economic classes where all these restaurants are available, it's in suburban areas and urban areas. You don't see it in rural areas. You don't see those this stuff. And what's funny is because it's coming from rural areas. The food's coming from rural areas. You would think it'd be local too, but it's not.
Yeah, one thing that
trendy.
One thing that I know that you can point out and say, see, this is what's kind of happening, is that I cannot deny over the past 10 years there has been a shift of businesses gearing their food offerings, more towards healthier options. Like, I mean, I don't trust it worth shit, but I just saw a commercial for Lean Cuisine, and like, no artificial preservatives, no fake food coloring or whatever. Yep. I don't know if it's still probably shit food anyway, but it's
better than was before. Possibly.
It's a step in the right direction, I guess. But then you still have like, maybe companies like Subway, where the chicken they're using is just like congealed meat that's not real chicken. And then they say that and this is the thing too, is like, they're smart motherfuckers. Like, you have McDonald's and Subway and stuff like that saying they use all white meat chicken, which sounds nice. But
what parts?
All you gotta do is just bleach the chicken, and now it's white.
And what's worse,
or it doesn't mean that the chicken was raised any healthier. It's just there's just the cut that you're gonna use.
So like, even worse than McDonald's is Chartwell's. Chartwell's is the stuff that's the company that provides all the cafeterias at schools with foods.
Hey, they make some dope ass pizzas though.
I did look forward to pizzas on Friday and whatnot. But no, like that kind of food, like the paste
rectangular
you see,
shaped square pizzas.
like the chicken nuggets paste and stuff. It's just, that's what we're giving our kids.
One thing, and I'm gonna actually link this into the bio because I've talked about this often too. Not necessarily on the show, but I've mentioned this for a number of years. There used to be a show on TV called Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution.
Yes.
And the most mind-blowing thing happened where he got a group of kids together, and he.
There we go. You're good.
Oh, sorry if the audio cut out. Okay, so Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution. He got a group of kids together, maybe a group of 20 or whatever, and he
Elementary
said,
school.
Elementary school
Yes.
kids. Yeah, he's like, okay, cool. We're gonna make chicken nuggets. Like, how many of you guys eat chicken nuggets? Of course, every kid raises their hand.
Oh, I've seen this.
Yes.
And he's like, okay, cool. We're gonna make chicken nuggets, and of course they're all excited. So he brings out the chicken. He literally just grinds the whole thing up, bones and everything, into like this pink paste, and then forms it in little shapes,
And
batters it, fries it, and the whole time that he's doing this, the kids are like, "This is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen." Blah 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 blah. But then when they see the final product of fried shaped little chicken things,
9 out of 10.
he goes, okay, how many of you guys would eat this? And just about all of them raise their hand.
Yep.
He's just
Yeah.
like, just the look
Oh,
of
his
horror on
face.
his face. Like, you just
Wow.
watched me grind up bones and everything, this entire chicken.
Yeah.
Marketing.
Feet, beak, and everything. And you watched it and you're disgusted by it. But then when I fry it and put it in a shape, you're like, give it to me.
Propaganda is a very
It's
invasive
crazy.
Yeah.
thing.
Dude, if
Crazy.
you could fry almost anything and I'll eat it.
Well,
That's
the-
dangerous.
I know the new trend now is like inhaling condoms. So
Oh,
yeah.
don't even.
Yeah, would you
Yeah.
eat it? Would you eat a
Yeah,
condom
fried
if I fried
condom?
it?
Yeah, fried condom.
like sticking it up your nose and coming out
If
your
it was
mouth.
like gravy flavored.
Ew.
Gravy flavored
You
fried
be- you
condom.
be real-
man gravy
You-
flavor.
I was about to say
I'm
baby
just-
gravy.
Baby gravy. Oh man.
It's got a lot of semen in that one.
Oh man,
Oh.
so bad,
Oh,
so
God.
bad.
Let's so there's one last thing I wanted to kind of talk about, and it's just like the history of man and animal, and I think there's something special. And someone mentioned to me, you know, like a quote they mentioned to me that man wasn't domesticated until we domesticated the dog, and I kind of started digging in here and trying to try and find when did man first start domesticating animals. And from our record, it started somewhere in Central Asia 15,000 years ago, with dogs to help as hunting as well as food sources, like a security alarm system almost. They could detect things miles away before we can. And I started watching. I actually watched this really interesting documentary. I can't remember the name now.
Oh
but,
man.
I have it on my
What the
history
Health?
list. No, I had to pull that up. But it was just showing some like the bones and stuff that they were finding. They were finding, I mean, like 15,000 years ago. Maybe it wasn't that when the bones were found, but they were finding animals being buried with dogs.
Mhm.
The
and-
Egyptians, cats.
They
They
worship.
were all about that.
But that to me immediately says like from the beginning, our connection with these animals has been huge, and
Well,
it
I mean,
wasn't.
think about it this way. Think about our language. Like, say,
Yeah.
for example, when you say, oh, the waves roared on the coastline or something like that, or it's like a bat out of hell or something. Like, animals influence, because we are one with nature, they influence everything about us.
We are an animal.
Yes.
So like that's I think you were kind of maybe alluding that before,
Yes.
or maybe it was you that was talking about, you know, the distinction of like religions and how they view humans to animals.
Yeah.
But like I think especially when probably when what's his nuts came out with the evolution thing.
Darwin.
Yeah, Charles Darwin.
Yes.
I almost said James Darwin. I don't know why. Charles Darwin, when he came out with the concept of evolution, like I think for a lot of people that was like
On the origin of species.
we fit right into nature. Like we are nature.
Yeah.
And
Adapting, yes.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I think if we can shift as a society more as looking at animals as part of us, and we are part of them. You know, hippies.
Well, I mean, if
hippie
you-
shit, but like even then, so just because you do that doesn't mean
Welcome.
Welcome. But just because you look at it that way, like I've been to ranches. I had a good family friend that had a rat, care for them, give them a good life, and still eat them. Like that's still okay to do.
Yeah, I was looking at the list of animals and how they think we've domesticated. So the dog being first, and then they think that sheep and goats were next.
Okay.
And at first we used them mostly for food, and then once we realized that we could use their wool and their milk, that we started trying to do that. But milk was very rare, and it was pretty much used just to help the other animals. Until we started learning decades later, centuries later actually, how to modify and breed in certain characteristics of certain animals to get bigger milk production out of
That's
cows.
when we became God.
Yeah. And then cows and horses, but horses surprisingly were used for meat and skin first, which I never knew. I just thought horses was like an immediate, like, oh, that thing's fast. Let's try and get on it.
You know what I've always found really interesting, and you can see this throughout the entirety of history, is like, one animal that we may view as super, super taboo to eat is super normal for another culture to eat. And it's like, how could you ever eat like squirrel? And it's like, well, ask somebody from Louisiana. That's just normal food. But then
nutria.
You go maybe somewhere else, even within the same country or to another country, and they just could not imagine eating such an animal. And
cows,
insects. I mean, all types of animals. It's always just been really interesting to me how different animals are viewed so differently in different cultures.
Travis, what you got?
You
got a smirk on his face.
Yeah, I mean, it just made me think, like, when we're talking about like what people are eating and like the first time that we ate those things, like who was the guy that just like looked at a cow and
let me suck its tit?
I'm gonna eat. Yeah, exactly. I wonder what comes out of there. I'm gonna drink it.
That's all. That is. I think there's a meme.
There is a meme.
That,
it's like, can you imagine? Yeah. Anyway, the same concept.
But then donkeys, camels, hens, all kinds of things started falling in, and a lot of it came to with the I guess discovery of agriculture in ancient Mesopotamia area and Sumerian area, when they started, like, we stopped being nomadic and started like really settling and making cities, and agriculture started forming, is when really cattle started becoming even more important for their work. But even still, I was reading back when I go back to that emotional attachment to animals, it wasn't just dogs and cats. Like a lot of them have to do with horses and cattle and sheep and goats and llamas. Llamas are used a lot in emotional therapy. I didn't know that.
Fuck them.
Llamas are strange. Kind of freak me out.
Never had the opportunity to meet a llama before, so.
Oh, there's an awesome park near San Antonio I can take you to, and we can go play with a llama.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right.
Yeah, I think it's about time for the quote of the week. You know what? Quote of the week.
Let's do that.
Yeah. It's because he clicked on it. We're learning.
Time
We're
out.
learning.
Time out. Veil has been lifted. Give me 1 second, and we will have a quote clip.
And there we go.
We got that quote. We're still learning, yes. So the quote for this week is by a man named Mark Bekoff, author of Animals Matter. A biologist explains why we should treat animals with compassion and respect. And Mr. Bekoff says, human beings are a part of the animal kingdom, not apart from it. The separation of us and them creates a false picture and is responsible for much suffering. I mean, that's what we were just talking about. And what's crazy is that I was just looking through an article I was reading about, the religions. Now, I think I was a little off on saying like the Abrahamic religions or have that really distinct separation. But further into the conversation, what we were talking about is actually what they reflected. So Islam, with halal and whatnot, they give them there is that separation there, but it's not as like distinct. Like, for example, Allah or Muhammad said that we should treat them with, equal respect or consideration to humans. And same with Judaism. They're very kosher laws are a very big thing. It's like there's a reverence to these animals.
Yeah,
and whatnot.
and that's, I found that interesting too. Like why does sort of Judaism have the kosher thing where I guess there's still that there's that distinction between animals and humans, but
It's
there's very much a particular way to slaughter an animal that's, I guess, more humane. And the same thing with halal, which is basically kosher, but for Muslims. But Christianity is like, nah, we're just going to kill that thing and eat it.
Well,
Tell you what, son.
What it was is I
tastes
think
good.
it came down to the Reformations. Is there was a lot of stuff.
No,
No, it didn't.
So there's something in Hebrew called,
It's
the
an
concept is called, I'm going to butcher the hell out of this. No
You
pun
don't
intended.
speak Judaism.
Sahar Balahe Hayim, the mandate to prevent the sorrow of living creatures. So this is in Judaism. So it's kosher laws are very about stunning and making sure the animal's unconscious. The same with, not necessarily with halal. Halal is a little more, it's, you treat them gently, but you're still slaughtering them.
Well, true.
Yeah.
But I think also the animals are, and correct, I mean, I don't know if I'm right, to be honest, but I think that it's more about like how the animals are slaughtered and prepared to eat, not necessarily about how they're raised.
Yes. Yeah.
So like there's still,
Could be in the worst living conditions.
well, yeah, exactly. You were just mentioning, sheep's coming over to the Middle East, like
Half dead.
whatever, we don't care until we're about to slaughter them. That's when we'll treat them with the respect. So maybe that's where some of that sort of stems from, where we're not seeing sort of there's still that sort of imminent distinction.
Yes, and of course we
separation, rather.
We could go into the Egyptian cultures and whatnot, and how they, like, their gods are very what's called zoomorphic or anthropomorphic, where they have, like, so for example, like Osiris is, I believe it's the hawk in the human form. No one really knows why they're like that. They
You also
chose to
have
do that.
cultures like India where the cow is absolutely
Yeah, the
revered.
Brahmin.
Yeah.
The Brahmin it's revered, because in Hinduism and with Buddhism,
You
and
could be
whatnot,
reborn as one of those
yes,
animals.
Yes,
Exactly.
Your
I want to be
karma-
a cockroach.
Well, then,
Hey, I could
be a serial
survive a
killer.
nuclear bomb.
Be a serial killer, a nuclear bomb.
All right, guys. Well, that was a great, very insightful interview with Audrey, as well as an episode. Again, we really, really appreciate her coming on the show and providing us with those insights. But to sort of change gears here, if you will, let's talk about partying. I like partying. Do you like partying?
Are you
Everyone does.
are you a party animal?
Ooh.
Travis.
Nice. Well, of course, we are talking about our great friends over at BlueFrogPartyClub.com, where the party never stops. You can go over there to their website. You can get a party in a box. I think the Cinco de Mayo stuff is on there or coming out there shortly. So Cinco de Mayo is coming up, so you got some time to plan for that. But yeah, get one of those boxes. There's invitations, what to do, what to prepare, what drinks to make,
Recipes, shopping list,
everything. Like everything you need to have a great
Ooh,
party.
it's lit.
But yeah, go over to BlueFrogPartyClub.com. You can enter promo code Bermuda, where you can get 15% off your first order. Blue Frog Party Club, change the world one party at a time.
Oh.
Yeah.
That was
okay.
nice.
I don't
That
know
was
what
nice.
that was.
All right.
I got left with chills after that. I was ready to party.
Well, also, you
hound
guys,
dog,
you
you.
guys can also head over to our website, bermudat.com, and you can check out all of our extended content rather. Words.
Words.
Of course, we're all on major social media platforms such as Instagram at Bermuda Triangle Podcast, Twitter at Bermuda T Podcast, and Facebook.com/Bermuda Triangle Podcast. We also are looking to live stream these videos. Right now, we're only doing to YouTube, but we're looking to sort of multicast these to Twitch, possibly Facebook Live, and all that stuff. So yeah, join us over on those social media platforms. Give us a like and stay involved in those conversations.
As Adam has hinted, we are growing our live stream. As we mentioned in the beginning, we are in a new place, have a new setup, a new gig. Travis has got a new role.
I'm learning, in case you haven't noticed if you're watching the stream.
Yeah, it's a growing process.
You did a good job.
And
You
it
did
was
a good job.
fantastic.
Yeah.
It's good for our first episode.
I want people to see this growth. So if you are a listener, an audio listener, please come check us out. Hit that subscribe button to all of our YouTube channel, or join us on Facebook, because it'll likely go live there soon.
You can also hit the little bell in YouTube, and you'll be notified when we start a new live stream.
Yeah.
So subscribe, like us, do all those fun things. Also, join us for the live broadcast because you can be involved in it. You can ask us questions that we'll answer live on the show. I'm sure at one point as we get more participation in these live streams, we'll do sort of a AMA or Ask Me Anything episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, come watch us. We're going to do them regularly Mondays at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Of course, we'll continue to advertise those. But yeah, join us on a live stream.
And you'll see some changes in the set weekly.
Yeah, there'll be
some
pictures.
game changes, stuff like that is happening in our show. But guys, I am just super excited to have y'all be a part of this with us.
Part of the journey.
Oh man. Well, guys, it has been just a fantastic, wonderful, amazing. I can't even come up with any more words right now. I'm just so shocked with how fantastic it's been.
Adjective.
Yeah, adjective. Episode of the Bermuda Triangle Podcast, where interesting topics get lost in good conversation. We'll see you